Hi guys, we're talking again about how to reprogram your mind. Be sure to watch to the end because this is going to be important. So it seems that what is required to reprogram your subconscious is a radically different approach to self-talk. One in which we are learning to take on those qualities and characteristics and really the age appropriate language skills of maybe the parents we wish we'd had. And remember, even if we think we have great parents, even if we think we had a great childhood, um, sometimes it is just a little bit of unintentional neglect at very crucial points that guys, we don't have to have monstrous parents in order for at a very particular time in our very early childhood for us to believe that we're being treated monstrously. And that might be not be anyone's fault, but we're still dealing with the consequences of that. Now, many of you that are watching this were like, no, my parents were awful, and so we're dealing with the consequences of that. So first step, stop telling the stories of the past. I know you're not going to want to hear this. This is the part that you're not going to like, because you're like, no, you need to understand. You know, and you're not honoring those parts of yourself by going over and over the events of the past. You're just making it more real in the mind, and it's going to be harder and harder to move past that. Now, and you're going to say, well, all I have is just these recurring thoughts, and I can't. Or you're going to say, well, if I can't get the images into my head, I can't remember what happened. If I could just remember what happened, then I could feel okay about it. Guys, we've seen people recover memories. It doesn't help. Now, okay, if there's a story, and we want to tell that story at least once. If you're talking to somebody who's helping you, work through this, if you're talking to me, tell me your story so that we understand what we're talking about. We understand what we're dealing with. But especially when you're by yourself, stop or when you're just interacting with other people and you're like, oh yeah, let me tell you everything that happened to me. Stop. I beg you, stop telling stories. Stop telling those stories of those awful things that happened to you in your past. What you're really dealing with is the emotional consequences of those stories. And so, radically different approach to self-talk, right? So what we have to be able to do is we have to be able to think of ourselves on multiple levels and multiple layers. And that means being able to think of ourselves at any given time on probably at least three different sets of emotional content at the same time. And what that means is these three sets of emotional content are the feelings that you were experiencing in your younger life at a particular time, whether it was, you were a year old or 6 years old or 10 years old, whatever that age range was. The emotions that you or any other third-person observer would feel watching this scene of these things happening to you. That's the second set of emotions. And then the third set of emotions, of which you need to be aware, are the emotions you would prefer to feel right now, and that you would prefer that this younger version of yourself would feel. I am going to assume, for the sake of argument, that you want to be happy, that you want to be free, that you want to feel at peace and excited about moving forward into new things. I'm going to assume that. If you would prefer to be miserable, then understand, if you don't have enough misery in your life, here's the guaranteed formula for suffering. Understand, pain and suffering are not the same thing. What is it they say? Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is a choice. Now, it's a choice that you don't remember making, so it doesn't really feel like a choice because now it's programmed into you. But here's the guaranteed formula for suffering, is to see things as they are and desperately wish they were different. That is guaranteed suffering, and misery. Now, it doesn't have to stay that way. You can, but understand the formula for suffering is pain times resistance. Pain times resistance equals suffering. So I'm going to assume that you don't want that. You're going to have to live with the pain, but you don't have to suffer for it. You'll have these emotional consequences that you don't have to, you'll have to bear the emotions, but you don't have to bear the meaning behind it. You might not be able to change the past yet. We'll get to that much later. But if you can't change the past, you can absolutely change what you think it means. So what we're looking at is the feelings that we felt at the time, the feelings that we feel as a mature parental adult looking back at that situation, and the emotions that we would prefer to feel, which I am going to assume are positive. So stop telling the story of the event. Just look at yourself living that story, feeling those emotions. I know we have to think of ourselves a little more abstractly here, and we have to think of ourselves on multiple layers and understand it is a mistake to think of the human mind as this singular monolithic thing where any dissenting voice is evidence of some kind of pathological fragmentation of mind. Remember, the human mind is multiplicitous by nature. And these parts of ourselves, they took control. Other parts of ourselves took control. We might call them protectors, protector parts of our personality, protecting those younger versions of ourselves that are carrying those emotional burdens. And it is they as well that we have to be able to identify with their feelings and understand and question what their motivations are without agreeing with them. So we're not going to agree with their motivations. We're going to say, no, you don't have anything to protect anymore. We're safe now. And those are the beliefs and the emotions of calmness, peace, stillness, relaxation that we want to share with them without trying to convince them. We're not trying to convince them. We're not trying to talk them into changing their minds. We're trying to show them a different way. And that's what's required when I say a radically different approach to self-talk, where we're taking on qualities and characteristics and age-appropriate language skills. Why do I say age-appropriate language skills? Because like the 12-year-old, 15-year-old versions of yourself, they can comprehend what we're talking about right here. They can understand this conversation. But what about a 6-year-old? What about a 2-year-old? What about a newborn? The younger we go back into our ages, the less language becomes accessible. We have less and less of a vocabulary the further we go back. So remember, it's probably not going to be the words that we choose. Use words when we're talking this methodology out, but when you look at yourself, it's going to be the emotions, it's going to be the feelings. So more so than the words that we choose, approach those parts of ourselves with emotion of calmness, peace, openness, curiosity, playfulness, all those things that Dr. Richard Schwartz talks about. Look up the 8 C's and the 5 P's. If you're wondering, well, what qualities do I take on if I'm going to reparent these younger versions of myself? Look up the 8 C's and the 5 P's in the internal family systems model. Okay. And that's all I've got for you today. Please, if this is helpful to you, ask questions. And again, like, share, subscribe, all those things. I appreciate you watching till the end of these videos. Thank you very much. Until then, next time, please have a wonderful rest of your day and be blessed.